garage. Well, I'm out here in the shop and I'm working on the JK heater control module right here. A new one of these costs about 400 bucks. I ain't gonna spend $400, so I'm gonna try to repair it. The aggravation of this is that at night you can't see it. The lights are burned out. So usually on older things, you can just pull the bulb out of the back, put a bulb in it, and you're good to go. Well, the brilliant brains at Chrysler decided to solder the bulbs to the board so they're not replaceable, and you have to replace the whole thing for, like I said, 400 bucks. So I'm gonna get around that. We're gonna replace it with LEDs. I've got my handy dandy solder gun here. This is what it looks like inside the Jeep at night. Very frustrating. All right, this is super annoying. This is where your controls are for your heating and air, and if it's at night, let's see. Let me turn off the light and I'll show you what you can see. Absolutely nothing. It's just dark. You can't see jack. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out and see if I can figure out what's going on with the backlights on the climate control. So there's nothing there. It's just blank. You know, you can't see the window switches. You can't see any of the heating control modules. So if you don't drive at night, then this won't really pertain to you. But if you've got a 07 to 2010 Jeep Wrangler and your bulbs have gone out in your heater control module and it makes you sick to your stomach every time you look at spending 400 bucks for one of these, then this video is for you. So let's get going. Okay, I went back and I decided that I needed to add this portion to the video about adding the lights to these circuit boards on the climate control for the JKs, right? I didn't do a very good job explaining it, so let me go through just a little quick explanation of the architecture of these boards and what you're looking for, and then we can move along with how to replace the bulbs and everything like that. So the first thing you may have a little bit of trouble with are these cables to get this thing assembly out. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a flat blade and push in right here, and it's going to pop out these cables. I'll do the other side too. You're going to push in and wiggle and it pops out. Now sometimes you have to take a pair of needle nose and just kind of push in on that there at the end of this cable, right? And then this will come off, right? Then you're left with this assembly here. And the next thing you have to do is get the stupid knobs off, and that is a challenge sometimes. To get the knobs off easier, I made these up with some angle of aluminum, and this is 1 by 48 inches, so I just whacked it off. 1/16 of an inch thickness, and I cut it and ground it out, and I've got two pieces. So what I would do is put it around the knob like this. You can also get a pair of vice grips and put on either side to get a little bit of turning pressure, but if you pull up at the same time with both of them, it gives a lot more surface area to pull the knob off. So I was able to get the knobs off easier using that than screwdrivers, because the screwdriver, you can see right here, actually made a little gouge in the plastic because you're actually just, you know, trying to pry up here. So those work great. You might have better luck with screwdrivers. I did not. Next thing we do is we're going to pop off the front cover. You got 4 tabs. 1, 2, right? 3, 4, and that's it. Now we're down to the internal guts. This particular board, which isn't even a Jeep one, it's one of the Compass Patriot ones, you can see that it's got 3 buttons. It's got a rear defrost over here, and my original one only had 2. It only had recirculate and AC. The 3-button one will work fine. You'll just have that extra button, so I really don't care if it has an extra button on there or not. When you look at the board, you're going to have 4 main bulbs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to have 2 minor bulbs or 3 bulbs depending on how many buttons you have. This one has 1, 2, 3. Those are the mini bulbs, and I did find a bulb light for that. If you look at it real closely, it has a resistor built in, and it's small architecture, small enough for this to go over it, and that's what you need. You can see down in there on that one that the bulb actually doesn't go very far into the thing, so that's not going to interfere with the button action. And as well, you have 1, 2, 3, and these are LEDs that came on the original board, and they don't really burn out, and that means that it's on. So these lights here, I learned this through trial and error. These 3 bulbs, the small ones, basically light up your buttons at night so you can see what the face of the button is, and then when you turn it on, those LEDs, see on the back side of the faceplate, 1, 2, 3, that's where those LEDs are. So when you push the button, that is your indicator on, and these are basically just to find your knobs. So Yeah, so I got those soldered in. This thing looks great. So that's basically the architecture of this board, and to take it out, all you do is lift up, and then your board's loose. And just be careful with it, don't drop it a bunch of times. And then once you're done, it just slides back in and you can reassemble, put your buttons on top, right? And then your cover snaps back on, and then your knobs. So that's all there really is to disassembly. I think the hardest part was the knobs. So let's get back to the video about soldering the lights and how to do that. But I wanted to do a little architecture of how this thing is actually laid out as far as the circuit board goes for you before we move forward. Now I did get this out. I did booger up the face of it just a hair, trying to get the knobs off because these suck to get off. But basically you pry up with two pieces of, like 2 screwdrivers. I had 2 flat pieces, and finally I got them to all come off. Now I'll try to polish that up a little bit, but I've got some used ones coming in that I'm going to play with and maybe use those as the face plate. So I'm not too concerned about that. Okay, and to desolder, you're going to take your soldering iron, just go right over here to this little pool on either side and heat it up. And once it gets hot, it'll pop up off of there. You can see it. There we go. Now what do you think my problem is going to be? Since I don't have the Jeep down here with me. There we go. Coming right off. As it gets hotter, sometimes it's easier, but there we go. There's 3. And I think I'm going to try to take this little one off. I think I'm going to need a little bit smaller tip for that. Now, okay. Let's let that get good and hot. So, what I'm going to have to do is take this board and plug it in to the Jeep and figure out which one's plus and which one's minus, because LEDs are dependent on the correct polarity. You can't just hook them up either way, because one way it'll work and one way it won't. So what I'm going to have to do is go ahead and mark these plus minus on those 4, and then this one, those 2 right there, once I get it back to the Jeep, which I'll do that here in just a little bit. Okay, awesome. I'll let you get a good look at this. I marked these plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, right? And that's how I have to solder them on there, because it is dependent on what side is which. And you can tell from the light itself, I've got hot and negative leads here with 12 volts to it. And the one with the resistor is actually going to be the hot side, and the negative side is going to be the plain lead. And that's how that works. So let me get this thing warmed up here, and I'll start soldering the 4 big bulbs and then 2 small bulbs. Awesome. And you can actually go in and test it if you want to. If you've got a 12 volt lead coming in, that's plus, that's minus. There it is. Okay. So I'll continue on soldering the big bulbs in. The way they come is this, and you just bend the tabs down and then just pull it out like that. You can chuck that. Okay, so here's where I'm at. If I power up, dang, super bright. So this thing, all things are firing on all cylinders. I'll go ahead and put this thing back together, and we'll put it in the Jeep and see what it looks like. Let me get this thing zipped back up. We'll throw it in the Jeep and see what it looks like. Alright, she looks good. Everything seems to be functioning like it's supposed to. Got a little bit of boogered up here trying to get the knobs off, and I haven't really got that procedure down as well as I would like, but I do want to see what this looks like in the Jeep. Alright, let's turn this thing on and see what it looks like. Bam! Beautiful. Looks really, really nice. The only thing that I would say is that green lights might look a little bit better, but as far as like being able to see what you're doing is great. And you can see where I scratched that black part. I can take a Sharpie and do that. So, success. This is the small LED that I was able to replace these 3 bulbs with, and the resistor's built into it, so there's nothing hanging off the bottom of it. You just solder it in and it's ready to go. It's set up for 12 volts. So those worked out great for that. So everything on this board is LED now with no incandescents. And that's it with it lit up on the amber indicator bulb, and it looks great. So here it is. It's got the green illumination bulbs and then the indicator bulbs in LEDs on the small ones, and that turned out beautiful. I think it looks great and it looks factory. Alright, this one's all reassembled. It looks good. The only damage I did to it was right here, because I did this before I had my tools that I made. So the screwdriver made a little bit of mark in the plastic. Now on the Jeeps it kind of covers most of it. So basically you'd see that little mark right there. Everything else is covered. But I still tried to do as least damage as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the lights off in here in the shop, hook it up, and I'll show you what it looks like. This on the bench, it's incredibly bright. I love the green tint to it. I think it looks great. Those 3 lights, 1, 2, and 3, those LEDs, you can see it gives an amber glow. And if this was plugged into the truck, if you hit these buttons, then there's another LED that lights up next to it. So these are the only ones you have to replace. So 4 big ones, 3 small ones. The thing looks absolutely awesome. Looks like a new one. So there we go. If you're like me, you hate to solder on a board, and if something happens, then you're without having a heater and air control. So I like to have a spare. Now, this one here on eBay for $403. It says OEM. This is actually a fake knockoff from China. If you look down here, it says Chinese. So not only is this one way overpriced, but $403 would be if you bought one from a Jeep dealership. Now they're trying to pass this off as a real OEM one, and it is not. This is a complete fake listing, so steer clear of that one. Now here's a real one that is actually $440. It's actually a Mopar one. The real ones are actually around $400 if you buy them from a dealership, but we're going to go cheaper than that. A used one will run you between $100 and $170. Sometimes they're asking $200 for a used one with that part number on it. But what I did determine is if you look up a Dodge Caliber or the Jeep Patriot or Jeep Compass, it's identical to the Wrangler one. I haven't been able to find any difference. Many of these are on sale used for about 20 bucks. So you can have a used one that you can practice on, solder your bulbs in. If it works, great, great. If it doesn't, then you've lost about 20 bucks. That's what I did. And I've got a couple, I bought probably 2 or 3 of them, and all of them plugged into the Jeep and worked just like a champ. So that's what I would suggest. All right, here's the deal, Lucille, as far as these circuit boards go and the lighting. First of all, I believe I like the green better than the white. The white looks a little bit blue when it shines through. The green I think is going to look great. Tonight when it gets dark, I'm going to go out there and we're going to take one more shot with the camera and see what it looks like with the green rather than the white. I ordered, these are 2 circuit boards here. This is the first one that I did with the white lights, and the circuit board is 11014212. This is one I bought, 11014212, right? Except this is not for a Wrangler. This one was for a Jeep Compass, I think. I'll show you down below of which ones I bought. However, I bought this one for 12 bucks and put new lights in it. The cheapest one for a Wrangler is going to be like 100 bucks. So you can save a ton of money by buying one of these other ones, put new lights in it, throw it in there, and it's identical to the other one. These are the 2 different faces. This is the original one. This is the one, now they have rear defrost on them, and my Jeep didn't have it, but who really cares if you've got an extra button over here, as long as the lights light up and it looks better. So I'm still playing with these, but as far as I can tell, there is virtually no difference whatsoever between the housings between the two regular Jeeps and the other ones. Man, there's a huge price difference between the Wrangler ones and the other ones. So anyway, that's all I'm doing with these for today. I love the green. It makes it look like it's factory, better than the white. Even though it's not made for a Wrangler, it works just the same, and I can't find any differences. So if I can buy one for $25 to $30, $45 that it's in really nice shape, then man, that's awesome. Put new lights in it and go on down the road. I may start selling these. Who the heck knows? Any question, comments, post them below. I'm pretty thrilled with the way that the heating and air control works at this point. I'm David from the Redneck Garage. Keep turning wrenches.